understanding and a part of the Christmas story that most of us have never imagined. In fact, until I came here, it never occurred to me that Matthew and Luke were both trying to tell us something about the Christmas story that was very important. Luke begins his story by simply saying, during the time of Herod, king of Judea, and that's the way he begins his entire Jesus story. Over in Matthew's Gospel, chapter 2, the very first verse, he says, Jesus was born while Herod was king of Judea. That tends to go right over my head. You know, until you come here and you walk through Israel and you, in a sense, you take a tour of all the things Herod built, from the great temple in Jerusalem to the great city at Caesarea, to palace after palace after palace. You can go to Masada and go down to Jericho, and maybe as many as 8, 9 palaces have been found that belonged to the great king of Judea. He was rich, he was powerful, and he was dangerous. In fact, if you continue reading Matthew's story of the birth of Jesus, you'll get to the part where Herod was tricked by the Magi, and when he realized that the Magi had found something and had left without checking in with him, Herod orders all of the infant boys of Bethlehem and the surrounding villages to be slaughtered. Now, there's some historians that actually don't want to believe that. They say that's one of the biblical legends to make Herod look like a bad guy. But those same historians give us enough information about Herod the king that we don't have to make up some kind of information that would make him a bad guy. He was a bad guy. I mean, think about being in his family. He killed his father-in-law, his nephew. He killed 3 of his sons. He killed his favorite wife. Of course, he killed his enemies. He led an army up on our bow that eventually would throw entire families off the cliff. Herod was one of the cruelest, most powerful men in all of history of this region. And into that environment, Jesus was born. Here we are in a grand palace. I mean, this is an amazing palace. In fact, Herod named it for himself, the Herodium, and he was buried here. This is as good as it would get for the richest man in the land. Not very far from here, in a cave, we don't know exactly where, Jesus was born to parents who couldn't even afford a place for him to stay, who could barely provide it all, the most humble of circumstances. That's where God's Son was born. What a contrast to the richest man in all of Judea. And yet, only the ruins of Herod remain. All of those followers of Jesus, his kingdom lives on today. I'm Andy Cook, helping you experience Israel right now.